Good morning. I'm standing in the Pesach section at Publix. Pesach, of course, is the biggest Jewish holiday of the year. That's why every supermarket has a huge Passover section. More Jews celebrate Passover than any other holiday on the Jewish calendar. And obviously the reason is because this is the foundation, the very beginning of our Jewish nation. And of course, the night of Seder, we sit down to a meal called the Seder. The word Seder means order because it's an orderly meal, meaning to say that it's a formal meal. It's a meal we recount to our children and to our grandchildren what we've been doing for thousands of years, the story of our birth, of our nationality, of how we came into existence through God's kindness and love and intervention in Egypt by rescuing us from slavery. At the night of Seder, there are 15 orderly steps that we have to take to complete the Seder. The meal is step number 11. And I know sometimes people leave after the meal, but you really have to finish all 15 steps of the Seder because the word Seder means order. So what I would like to do between now and Passover is go through those 15 steps so we could all be better prepared for the Seder. The first of the 15 steps is Kadesh. Kadesh means sanctification, like the word Kiddush. When we sanctify Shabbat on holidays, we begin with a cup of wine and we recite a prayer of sanctification of the day. But here's the interesting question. You know, some synagogues have a JFK club just for Kiddush. People who don't come to the services, they just come for the Kiddush. And that's great, because Kiddush is also a mitzvah. It's the mitzvah of sanctifying the holiday or the Shabbat with a prayer over a cup of wine. But normally the word is Kiddush, like we're going to go to Kiddush, or let's make Kiddush, which means sanctification. But tonight, on the night of Seder, Passover night, we say Kadesh. Kadesh means sanctification, but it's in the form of a command, an instruction. Kadesh, you shall sanctify. It doesn't just mean sanctification, it means Kadesh, you shall sanctify. And the question is, why is this one night different than all other nights? Why do we say Kadesh rather than Kiddush? And the answer is that if you have to explain Judaism in one word, it is Kadesh, sanctify. The mission of the Jew is to sanctify this world. How do we sanctify this world? How do we make this world holy? By imbuing it with God's ideals, God's principles, God's values, God's vision for humanity. The more we imbue our day-to-day actions with God's commandments and instructions for life, the more we sanctify this mundane world and make it God's world. And therefore, on the night of Passover, we say, the mission of the Jew, the reason why God made a Jewish nation, the reason why God took us out of slavery 3,335 years ago, was so we shall be able to sanctify this world. And therefore, the very first word on the very first holiday of the year is the mission statement of the Jew in one word, Kadesh, you shall sanctify. Because you see, Shabbat, a rabbi say, was sanctified before the Jewish people were created. Because after all, God made the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. So therefore, we're, so to speak, joining the party that was already prepared before us. But not so holidays. On holidays, we don't say, like on Shabbat, Mikadesh HaShabbat, that God sanctifies Shabbat. We say, Mikadesh Yisrael, God sanctifies Israel. And Israel sanctifies the holidays because we celebrate and proclaim the holidays through our observances of the mitzvot. Indeed, when we make Kiddush, we don't just state a proclamation of sanctification. What we actually do is say it over a cup of wine. Why do we always sanctify the Shabbat and the holidays with a cup of wine? Because the message of sanctification is that it can't just be an idea, it has to be tangible. We have to drink the wine. We have to sanctify the physical pleasures of this world by imbuing it with God. And that's why we always say it over a cup of wine. And in the Kiddush or the Kadesh, on the night of Passover, we recite 3 blessings. One is over the wine. One is over the holiday. The third one is Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu zman hazeh, that God allowed us to experience another Jewish holiday, the holiday of Passover. It's a story told in the concentration camps. The Jews managed to find a little flour and water and bake just a few pieces of matzah. And the question then was, who was going to eat this matzah? Clearly there was not enough for everyone, so who would get to have some of the matzah? And some said it should go to the elderly people, the oldest members. Some said to the rabbis, the scholars, the teachers, the leaders. And a debate was going on until they went to the Blusheva Rebbe to ask him, who should they give these few precious matzahs they managed to bake in secrecy? And the Rebbe thought about it and said, yes, it should go to the elderly. Suddenly a woman stepped forward and said, I disagree. I think it should go to the children. And the Rebbe said, why? And the Rebbe said, because if we survive the camps, we will have many memories of Passovers of years gone by. But if the children survive the camps, the concentration camps, the horrors of the Holocaust, and we don't give them the matzah to experience Passover, what memories will they have for their future? The Rebbe said, this woman is right. We're going to give these few precious matzahs to the children. And that's what they did. After the war, the Blusheva Rebbe lost his wife. And this woman lost her husband. And the Rebbe ended up marrying this woman. The night of Passover is the night that we teach our children what freedom means. To be a free person means to sanctify the world, to sanctify our lives. Because a slave is just worried about his existence. He's worried about survival. A free person can shape the course of their life through growth, through spiritual attachment to God, through sanctifying the world around them, by living to a higher, noble standard of values and principles as ordained in the very Torah that God gave us after our release and freedom from Egypt. And so we begin the night of Passover with the very most important word in Judaism, Kadesh, an instruction, a command, a directive. Thou shalt sanctify your life and the world around you. Have a wonderful day.